Fignon, that man there, will want to put his mark on the race today. If he can get away on the Poggio, it's Danilo Di Luca. Now in the colours, the grey and green colours of LPR. And other great winners, of course, the biggest winner of all, Eddy Merckx, 7 times a winner between 1966 and 1976. Dominated the race in that period. 66, 67, 69, 71, 2, 5 and 6. A man who mixed it up in the middle, Roger de Vlaminck, was a 3-time winner, 78 and 79. Well, these are our breakaway riders. This is Filippo Savini from the CSF Group Navigari. Actually a Swiss-based team, I think, or a Swiss-registered team, with Italian sponsors and riders, as are one of the other teams, the NGC Medical OTC Industria Porte team. There is William Frischkorn from Slipstream, had a bit of a baptism of fire during the Paris-Nice race. And the old man of the group here, Revis Velashovics from Riga, at the front there. Best results a few years back now, but he's making his presence felt today out in the break. 298 kilometers we've got to go today, and this break went at about 50 kilometers. Frischkorn starting it, soon to be joined by Savini, Velashovics and Nicole De Andrea. De Andrea seems to have dropped off the pace now, so we're down to 3. The break got up to a maximum of 16 minutes and 5 seconds. It's been yo-yoing up and down ever since, between about 11:45 and down to 10 minutes. But at the moment, they're just keeping station behind. Still to come, the big hills of the Cipressa and the Poggio, where this race will be won or lost. And Sean, not quite the race we've been used to over the last few years, because the finish is not exactly the same as we're used to, that flat-out sprint along Via Roma. Yes, well, it is changed a bit, and a little bit further on. And I know the question is, will it make a difference? And that was the questions going around from the journalists. And it can make a difference if you're out there in the front with 1 or 2 riders, or on your own, and you're hanging on with a 5 or 7 second lead. That extra 500, 600 meters can make all the difference. And there's 2 extra corners now. It was on the Via Roma, now we're finishing down the seafront. So certainly, yes, it could play into the hands of somebody if there's a rider or a small group away, and they could be caught, who knows, in the last 300-400 meters. So we just have to wait and see. But of course, the Poggio and the Cipressa, they are the ones where all the action will be. And interesting to see this year. A lot of people are saying, well, it's not going to be year of the sprinters, because a lot of riders want to break up this one, but it is a very difficult race to break it on. The Poggio is, you know, a difficult climb, but not difficult enough where you can really break the bunch and to get away, unless there's somebody unbelievably strong and can, you know, create enough of a difference to go over the top of the Poggio with the 15 seconds, 20 seconds plus advantage. This race hasn't been won that many times in a breakaway. I think the last time that it was won in a significant long distance breakaway, where somebody went away for a long time, was back in the late 1970s, if I remember rightly, or into the 80s. Marc Gomez, I think, was the rider, the Frenchman who was riding for Walber at the time, and he went up the road. I think he went with Alan Piper, actually. Went up the road, and they never thought he'd get to the end by himself, and everybody was arguing behind, and he got there by himself and won the race. So that was an unusual one. If you ever see pictures of him, some fantastic black and white shots of him on the podium, looking back at the crowd. 1982 the year was, and looking completely perplexed. He didn't really realize what he was doing there. So he won Milan-San Remo back in 1982. There've been some very famous long breakaways over the years. Whether those 3 will stay out there is highly doubtful. Biggest margin of this race was won by, certainly pre-war, was 14 minutes by, so just post-war was Fausto Coppi's win in 1946. 14 minutes he had. Not the longest breakaway in history. Or is it Paolo? And the rest of the boys. The weather, as you can see, is particularly good, unlike in Northern Europe. The wind wind very light, just coming in from the sea. Good conditions for bike racing. And people were a bit worried about the weather here in San Remo, but it's all set fair for this race. And San Remo, the classic season really underway now. We had a fantastic Paris-Nice, and the good weather stayed in the south of Europe because San Remo, or more southern Europe, should I say, San Remo looking fair today compared to the rest of Europe. In the UK, it's snowing. And the course today, 298 kilometers, by far the longest single-day race on the calendar for these guys. And they've been over the Passo del Torcino, the Urchins Pass, at 139 kilometers. It actually gets up to its summit at 142.3 kilometers. They put another extra little climb in at 204 kilometers, Le Mani, which was put into circumnavigate a big rock fall that came down on the usual route. So that's a new climb put in there, and it depends, it could sap a few legs. They didn't quite all ride up together because Bernard Cole gave it a bit of a dig over there. They've been over the top of that now, and other people just fired off the front, but by and large they all stayed together. The Cipressa will be where we first see any test of strength. Somebody will try and see how good the rival's legs up at 239 meters. Comes after 275.9 kilometers. Amazing to think there's another climb after that, isn't there? And then the Poggio, which of course it's just about as much as going up as it is coming down. And Sean, well known for his victory there back in 92 by chasing Moreno Argentine on the descent. What do you think, Sean? Is it really going to come down to those two hills again today? It's going to be a little more difficult for the sprinters because it's a slightly more technical run in. They're not running down the Via Roma as they normally do, so it could be a little bit more difficult. Are we likely to see the strong men? And there are some really good in-form, strong sprinters who can climb a little bit, slugging it out on the Poggio. Or might we see something a little bit earlier on that somebody might chance their arm and try and get away?
Well, I think if they're going to try something and make it difficult for the sprinters, they've got to make it that bit earlier. And waiting for the Poggio, it's very difficult to create enough of an advantage on the Poggio to go on, because the sprinters, they can hang on in there, and the Cipressa, much the same situation, because if the sprinters can stay close on the descent, they come back in again, and between Cipressa and Poggio you have that quite a bit of flat road once again. So it's really to make it difficult very earlier on, and in the Kappas on the seafront, Kappa Melle, Kappa Berta, those are the ones where you really have to start opening up the race and make it very difficult. But you need a number of teams to do that. One team on its own with 3 or 4 riders, they're not going to make it that difficult to put the sprinters under major difficulty, because the terrain is not difficult there once again. So it will be interesting to see if we believe what they are talking, and a lot of the riders, Bettini, Posato, Cancellara, all of those riders, they want to, to break up more and want to make it more difficult for the sprinters. So we have to wait and see if they can do that. But it is a very difficult race to make difficult, because the terrain is not majorly difficult to create a great advantage on any of those climbs.
There's Salini at the front, working his way forward, trying to keep this little breakaway going, but the gap has really fallen. They're pretty serious behind now. They did have a maximum of 16:05 at one point, and for those people watching bike racing fairly new to it, my word, people would think that 16 minutes is enough, but over 290 odd, it's not like that at all. There's Visconti, we've just seen behind, the Italian national champion. Savini doing most of the work from Firenze. I think he's got a brother, actually, who races as well. Filippo Savini from the CSF squad here. CSF Group Navigari. Emanuele Sella's squad. And he was up in the break. We did have another guy with these 3 earlier. Nicola Di Andrea, another second-year pro. His best result was second in the Tour of Bulgaria last year, second in the stage in the Tour of Bulgaria. But it's all coming back together because they're getting a bit serious behind now. 99th running of this race. It's only really been called off for wartime. both the First and Second World War. First run, though, in 1907. And you can imagine what the roads were like then. Absolutely dreadful. Well, the longest ever breakaway, and this one's about to be swallowed up, was by Constantin Girardengo, who's a multiple winner of the Milan-San Remo. Broke away with 200 kilometers still to go in 1918 and made it all the way to the line. Those were the days, huh? Sean, you reminded me 1991, Chiappucci won from a break, which I'd forgotten, actually.
Yes, that's true. It was a break that went quite early. I remember in the earlier part of the race, you know, the normal attacks, and there was quite a big group went away. I think there could have been about 20 riders. I was riding with the PDM team at that time, and we actually missed the move, and we did not have anybody from the team, I think, in that one. And there was a lot of teams got together and started to ride, but that the group worked very well together and held up and went into the finish. And it was there from that point that Chiappucci won. I think he went away on the Poggio on his own and finished alone in that one.
Well, nice to see Thomas Frischkorn suffering from everything. I say nice to see. He's suffering from every cyclist's problem of trying to eat and breathe at the same time. I think his best results last year in the Tour of Missouri, where he was in the top 3, if I remember rightly, overall in GC. Slipstream must be pretty happy this week. They've been given their wildcard entry to the Tour de France. That was always Jonathan Vaught's plan, to take them into the Tour de France in 2008 or 2009. They must be pretty happy indeed. They did get a bit of a battering in the final half of the Paris-Nice. I think the bad weather didn't do them much cop at the start of it either. But William Frischkorn out here at the front of this trio that still remains, and trying to get some food down his gullet because he's looking a little tired now. They've been out for a long time, out since 50 kilometers. They're at about 71 to go now, so they've been out for a long time, 220 kilometers in total. So these guys have been out for what? Let's do the maths, 170. The guy second in that little group there, Ravis Belashovics, is an interesting chap. Multiple Latvian time trial champion, if that means anything for you. There's Danilo Di Luca. He's a man who could spring a few surprises, Sean. He's not been in bad form. He had a bit of work to do in Tirreno, but he was testing his legs on some of the climbs, and it's the sort of course that would suit him.
Yes, well, certainly Milan-San Remo, you know, it's a race where you can prepare quietly in the Tirreno Adriatico, and we see De Luca there a number of times. He didn't do any extraordinary great results, but I'd not be concerned about that, because some riders, you know, they ride there in the race and they can feel that they're in good shape, but they don't show their best shape, and you know, wait for this one today.
Well, the gap is now down under 3 minutes as the Latvian Belashovics from Riga takes over at the front of the group. Whoop, one of the Milram boys being pushed back in. Puncture, I would imagine. Let's see who it is. Is that Pataki? Looks an awful lot like him. Well, they're beginning to travel now. He'll be paced up pretty quickly as soon as he can. Well, it's under 3 minutes now, the breakaway. Milan-San Remo, the remains of a long breakaway group, as we always see in Milan-San Remo. That's William Frischkorn of Slipstream. He has for company Filippo Sarvini, the second-year professional from CSF Group Navigari, in the green, riding the Colnago, and Ravis Belashovics in the yellow of Sonia Deval, the old man of the group, 32 years of age now. Kim Kirken from High Road. This is the second strip they've had this year. They had a black one before, and apparently we found out in Paris-Nice it's not going to be the last one either. I guess there's one way to get rid of your money. There is Savini. It may be the most tasteful jersey in the world, but you can certainly see it. And the shorts as well. Looks like David Miller on the front, the British champion. Well, we hope he's back in a bit more shape. He was suffering a little bit halfway through Paris-Nice, got a bit of a fever, bit of a stomach problem. One start and one non-starter today. By the way, the only man not starting is Alberto Loro, which is a bit of a blow for Tinkoff, because they would have liked to do something today. Tinkoff, the Italian-Russian team, and Loro in pretty good form back in the Tour of Langkawi. He was got some new lease of life. He's another elder statesman of the peloton, and they would be counting on him today. What about this team, Barlow World? Well, they've got 3 people who could do something in the sprints or in the hills today. Barlow World looking pretty strong. Baden Cook, Enrico Gasparotto, who I like as a rider quite a lot, and he's been doing very well indeed. And happy birthday, Enrico. 26 today, Gasparotto. He's been talking a lot, just quietly and smiling a lot. I think he wants to try something today. He's almost definitely going to try something on the Poggio. I would put money on that. Robert Hunter as well. As far as the Brits are concerned, if you're watching in the United Kingdom, Roger Hammond riding for High Road today, and Jeremy Hunt riding for Crédit Agricole. But he's having his work cut out, because Tor Uzoft is the designated boy from Crédit Agricole, and he's been in absolutely superb form. And we did wonder, didn't we, Sean, in the Paris-Nice race, whether he was just tuning up for this one and for the classics in general, because he was riding like I've not seen him ride before. Very early season, he was taking a lot of risks, he was riding hard, he was attacking, he was using bad weather to hone his skills, and Tor looking in good shape.
Yes, well, certainly in the Paris-Nice he looked very strong, and we see him going in the attack on the descents there and getting up the climbs very well. I think certainly much better than other years at this time of season. So I think he's in good shape. And on the descents, as you say, he was taking risks, but when you're really in good shape, you can, go that bit faster on the descents, and you're totally in control. So I think, Hushoff definitely in the final there, his tactic will be to hang in there and stay on the suppressor Poggio, stay with the main men, and hopefully it comes down to a sprint, because at the end of this one, of course, it's, the more strength you have left, well, that's very important, because such a long, almost 300 kilometers, it tells its toll in the end. And I think it's the really strong men, like Hushoff, for example, can put up a really good sprint, and if he gets to the final, he's always, yes, a very dangerous one.
What does it mean to the sprinters and the actual pure sprinters, and then the guys who are a little bit stronger and can get over the hills? What does this mean within the peloton, this race, Sean? Because we know that the sprinters like winning it, but how big a deal is it?
Well, of course, this one is it's one of the big classics. It's one of the big major ones at the beginning of the season, and if you can win this one, of course, well, your season is made. And if you're not Italian, well, then you could say you're almost made for life. But to win it for a rider, it just makes the season for himself and for the team. And it's a one where the sprinters can do well compared to the other ones. The Tour of Flanders and the Paris-Roubaix is a bit more difficult, because testing terrain there, and if you're really in good shape, you can get through this one, as we have seen for over the past number of years. If you look at the winners over the past right down through many years, you can pull off this one. So it's a great opportunity to win one of the monument of classics for a sprinter.
You don't have to be an out-and-out sprinter to win this. There's some sort of guys who can sprint who are slightly stronger, like Pozzato. Very fast, but not, I wouldn't say a pure sprinter, who's won here back a couple of years ago, 2006. The oldest rider, funnily enough, definitely not a sprinter, although he could certainly turn in a good performance. As we all know, André Schmil was 36 years old, 36 years and a third of a year, in fact, in 1999. The one rider I was looking down the lists I don't remember much about, Sean, was Gabriele Colombo. Do you remember much about him? He won in 1996. In fact, I don't even remember the race with him.
No, I was looking down to the results, actually, and Colombo, I was trying to think, but I remember, vaguely he had a good season that year, I think, at the early part of the season, and if I'm right, I think he arrived with a small group of riders and went away. I just don't remember when they went away, but yeah. I remember just that sprint with a handful of riders.
Some really great names have won this race, as we've said. Freire twice. He's trying to join the three-time club. He's in very good form. He was in good form in Tirreno Adriatico. Pataki wants to win again. Pozzato has won a single time. Bettini won back in 2003. He'd love to do it in the World Champions jersey, and there's only a handful of men have done that as well. Alfredo Binder won back in 1931. Merckx won twice whilst in the World Champions jersey, 72 and 75, and Felice Giamondi. And Cerrone as well won whilst he was in the World Champions jersey back in 1983, just a year after Marc Gomez we were talking about earlier. Fons de Wolf has won here. That great talent who sort of just faded, unfortunately. De Vlaming, Merckx, Coppi, Bartali, Moser, Henny Kuipers won here, Laurent Fignot won twice, Bugno won once, Chiappucci, Fondries, the list goes on and on and on, as well as Laurent Jalabert. On we go, on we go. There's Fabio Baldato at the front, Marzio Bruzigin for Lampre. Well, they've got a couple of chances, Lampre. Let's just have a look at the people who could really figure today. We've talked about Oscar Freire, won twice already, last year and in 2004, wants to try and do something again. Barlow World have got three riders who could throw a cat amongst the pigeons. Baden Cook, Enrico Gasparotto, Robert Hunter. There's Rojas, or even, in fact, if he gets away hard on the Cypress, or even more so the Poggio, Joaquim Rodriguez could do something for Case de Pin. Crédit Agricole have got Jeremy Hunt and Tor Uzoft. Bertolini, now I wouldn't discount him having a go if he's in good form for Deco Giovanni, as we have to now call Selle Italia, Gianni Savio's team. But they've also got Danilo Hondo as well. He's kept himself in good shape. He's back in that team. He's back in a major race. It'll be the first time we've seen him in a major race for a very long time. Sebastian Chavanel and Philippe Gilbert. I wouldn't put past him putting a big attack in as well. Well, the breakaway has been away for a long time. They're about to be swallowed up completely by the peloton as they run into San Remo now. 99th running of the Milan San Remo, organised first of all by Gazzetta dello Sport and run first of all in 1907. In fact, when they first run it, they sent out the winner of the Tour of Lombardy that a couple of years previously to test out the course with his team. If you see some of the shots, if you've ever seen any of the archive photographs from the Milan San Remo in that time, it was absolutely horrible. The roads, as you'd expect, completely unmade. And in the first 2 or 3 years of running the race from about 1907 onwards, they had, from 1907 onwards, not about at all, they had absolutely atrocious conditions. People were always turning up through muddy streets. It took an awful long time. Winning margin in history, 14 minutes for Fausto Coppi back in 1946. Unlikely to be eclipsed for quite a while, that they just don't let them get away. We were looking at the favourites. We couldn't discount Ronaldo Nocentini or indeed David Rebellin, Sean, because Nocentini and Rebellin are both obviously in absolutely fine form. Nocentini, well, he's had some good results already, as well as a second overall in Paris-Nice. He had second in the Tour de Haute-Var and first in GP Lugano, so he's in real form. He'd love to win this race.
Yes, well, again, there's so many names you could just pull out of the stat list here and say, well, he could win today. The riders are in form at this moment, like Rebellin, Nocentini. A rider like that, can just get away on the Poggio with a small group, and it could just hold on out there. So it's one of these races again. It's when you look at the start list, there's a big number of names who are capable of winning, and it's not the case if you look at the Tour of Flanders, Paris-Roubaix. Well, then you can limit that down to 15 riders and say, well, that's certainly in that 15 the winner's going to come from that. But here today, if you look down through the start list, well, there's certainly 25-30 riders who could certainly win this one.
Yeah, it's always a big lottery, this one. Filippo Savini from Navigare leads them through Liguelia. Steve Cummings was second here in Liguelia in the single-day race a couple of years ago. And he's had a great season early on, not riding for Barlow World today, but they've got a good, solid squad. Bain Cook, Enrico Gasparotto, who is on really good form in Tirreno Adriatico, and Robert Hunter, of course, if it does come down to a mass sprint. Hunter, winner of a stage in the Tour de France last year, could very well do something. Some of the other big names to look out for we could throw into the mix, because they could just upset the apple cart, so to speak. Javier Florencio, the winner of San Sebastian a couple of years ago. Sylvain Chavanel would want to attack on the last climb of the day if his recent form's anything to go by. Nick Noyens, well, maybe he could do something. Maybe a little too fast for him, Nick Noyens. The two Recchesi brothers from Navigari, CSF Navigari as well, in the green and orange. They may want to do something. Massimiliano Recchesi and Abel Recchesi, the Argentinians. Fernandez from Euskaltel. We've talked about Rebel in this. Heinrich Hausler, the Australio-German, is riding, as well as Stefan Schumacher, who wasn't in particularly good form in Paris-Nice, but you never know. Look at High Road. They've got a very, very good lineup. Tulek, Eisel, Lukvist, Reines, all in the squad. Pozzato from Liquigas. If anything, they're probably a little down on strength. They've got Morelio Fischer. Quickstep of Bettini, Bonen, Stiegmans and Visconti in the squad, so it's there's some real big hitters here. McEwen is coming back into form, getting better all the time. Scott Sunderland told me this morning he's feeling good. They're all feeling pretty good. Leif Hoster, another man who could put a dig in when it comes to the hills at the end. Fabian Cancellara, Schleck, Matty Bretschel, Arveson, O'Grady. Scott Sunderland's own team. He's looking out for the rivals, of course, but Cancellara, victor in Tirreno Adriatico, seems to be going pretty well over the hills at the moment. You wouldn't go against him, Sean, because he could really power away, as we saw him in the Tour de France. He could really do something in the last 250 meters when they come out of that last corner, and he's got that sort of extreme power that he could just ride the whole distance.
Yes, well, he's certainly in form, and you know, the Tirreno Adriatico is a difficult race, and we see there last week, you know, these finishes up into a town up a hill, a couple of kilometres, and you know, to be able to do that, you certainly have to be in top shape. So he's a danger man, and if you know he gets over the Poggio with the leaders, and you come to the last kilometre, he's a man you have to be really careful with, because if he goes for it and takes, you know, a number of lengths, a number of bike lengths, he's, you know, so powerful, and if there's a moment of hesitation, well, then he's gone, and it's, you know, majorly difficult to take him back. And we see it last year in Compiègne in the Tour of France, when he just pulled the wool over all the sprinters' eyes and just slipped away in that last 300-400 metres.
Right, from Miche on the front at the moment. These are remaining breakaway riders. They're almost being eaten up. The peloton is now being strung out, led along by the quick steps with one Miche rider at the front. The overhead shot, by the way, was looking down on Enrico Gasparotto from Barlow World. He was just laying a hand on the back of his teammate Patrick Alcani, pushing him on a bit. He wants to get up further towards the front. But interestingly, I noticed Filippo Pozzato, who's sporting a bit of a new haircut, by the way, just on the shoulder of Gasparotto. So they're obviously looking at his form. You can see Gerd Stiegmans coming through to do his bit. The work at the front now being done by the NGC medical team, and this is a Swiss-based team. Tinkoff on the front as well. And they really strung out now as the peloton comes through La Guelia. Not much left of this breakaway, methinks. And still with quite a way to go, La Guelia. They've run 242.5 kilometers, 55.5 K still to go. 4 minutes and 2 it's actually strung out to. Again, it's surprising. They've let them get that way. I think they just sort of must have slowed down in the peloton a bit. Well, they did slow down the peloton a bit, but they've certainly sped up a bit. Again, yes, it's yo-yoing, isn't it?
Yes, well, I think, you know, there's a moment there for where it was slowed down quite a lot. We see the group, the peloton really, you know, all across the road, and everybody having a little bit of a discussion, a little bit of a talk, really, and that's the reason they pulled out a bit of an advantage once again. And the teams, the big teams, are not going to close this one down fully, because if you do that, well, then it's going to be, you know, go crazy and everybody attacking. So just leave them guys hanging out there at, you know, 3-4 minutes, and when when they just turn on the gas, like, they will come back in a number of kilometres. And when we come to the Kappa Mele, Kappa Berta, those ones, they will, you know, be swallowed up in no time at all. And they're getting tired as well. They've been out there for a long time. And, you know, with 3 or 4 riders, it's majorly difficult to stay out there. Unless you take 30 minutes plus, it's impossible to hold on out there. And, you know, that's certainly the case today. Those guys are just being left just hang out there for the time being.
Yeah, we shouldn't forget the capos, as they say, the little tiny hills, just on the way in the run to the Espresso, the Capo Mele, this Servo, the Capo Berta. They just all start to sap the legs a bit, especially if you've been out there for quite a long time. Big Marzio.
Just looking down through the start list, also the riders in this race from the Paris-Nice, I was just doing a rough count, and it is, you know, just a little bit rough side, but 45 riders roughly from the Paris-Nice here, and with 200 starters. So most of the riders that took part in the Torino Adriatico are in this race. And there was a lot of questions last week during the Paris-Nice. I was asked the question a number of times from journalists, which is the best race to go to? Is Paris-Nice better preparation or Torino Adriatico? And, you know, that probably answers a question a little bit when you see the number of riders from the Torino. Of course, they're down there, and, you know, they're in position, so a lot of the teams just allow the riders to stay on after the Torino, leading into San Remo. But certainly, in my time, I found the Paris-Nice was as good as preparation as any for the Milan San Remo.
Yeah, you have to wonder whether it's largely about logistics, leaving these guys down here. But of course, the other thing is that a lot of Italians want to be racing in this race, and will be riding in Tirreno Adriatico as well. A lot of Italian wildcards, or a couple of Italian wildcard teams, or teams based in Italy. So it could be just logistics, and the fact that they want to win this, the Primavera, the big opening race of the season. 298 kilometers. They've gone through Laguaglia now. They've got about 50 kilometers to go, and the little capo climbs for test the legs before the Poggio to come. Well, we had a breakaway go at 50 kilometers of 4 riders. William Frischkorn from Slipstream, Filippo Savini from CSF. The rider from Sonia Deval was Revis Belashovics, and Nicola and De Andrea from the Mish squad. De Andrea's slipped back into the clutches of the peloton some 30 kilometers ago, but Frischkorn, Savini and Belashovics are still out ahead. It's been cut right back down, and they will be taken back, but at the moment they're riding at about 4:15 ahead of the peloton. There is Frischkorn on the back. As they come up towards the Capo Kerro and the Capo Berta. How much of the Capo Berta, especially, Sean, how much of these will, at what point do some of these guys, maybe the stronger sprinter type riders who can get over everything, the all-round or the punchers, the guys who can do everything, what point in this race, because it's such a long one, do you suddenly start to test your legs and say, you know, hey, what, I feel quite good at the moment?
Well, I think on the capos is the place where you feel, you know, if you're in with a chance, because it really starts to, you know, go at full bore when we get to the capos, because it's getting close to the suppressor, and positioning is so important leading into the suppressor. You know, we are along the seafront here, and then you take a sharp right on up the suppressor, so you have to be in the top 30-40 riders, and outside of that you have to make a huge effort if you can move up, and, you know, it's not the place to be further back. So on the Capo Servo, Capo Mele, Capo Berta, you have to, you know, stay up in the top 30-40 riders, and it's really going to start going at 100% there. And you feel at that moment, if you're still feeling good, well, then you say to yourself, well, you know, I can do something this race. But if you're really hanging and really suffering, well, then you start, you know, the doubt creeps into your mind. You say, well, I'm not feeling a good day, but you keep on fighting, and you hope, you know, that maybe on the suppressor you might be that little better just when you start in the climbs, the short ones, the Capimeli, very short, a kilometre and a half, and it's difficult to get into a rhythm, where on the Cipressa Poggio that much longer you can get into a bit of a rhythm, and if you get a good position leading onto those climbs, well then you can hold your position and see from there what's what's the tactic, what's the action of the race.
That's Ivan Rovny, who many people consider, along with Pavel Brut, although we actually see other riders doing a lot more attacking, but a lot of guys consider this guy here, Ivan Rovny, the most talented of the Russians in the Tinkoff group. He's very young, is Ivan Rovny, and if you ask the others, like Pavel Brut, who is the really talented one, they will say Rovny, interestingly. But they've lost a rider today already. Tinkoff, their sprinter Alberto Loro, one of the veterans of the team, not starting this morning with a stomach complaint. There have been a lot of stomach complaints going around in the last few weeks or so. A lot of people suffering early in the season. Rovny, who won a stage in the Tour de l'Avenir, you remember, last year. And a very good rider indeed. There's Frischkorn just having a bit of a stretch on the bike. Not as easy as it looks that at speed. They make that sort of thing look really easy. I mean, how do you combat the fact that you might be very stiff and sore and even cramping up at this sort of length?
Well, of course, yes, you start to, tighten up, and after the distance, being out there for many hours, a lot of kilometres in the legs, it's good to have a stretch, and it's something, you certainly don't try if you're not, a good bike handler and used to doing that, because it can be quite dangerous. But they make it look so easy there. But stretching is, not a problem. But if you're starting to get cramp at this time, well, then it's, it's a risky one, it's a dangerous one, because to shake them off, when you really start going hard as we get further down the road, they start to come back at you, and it's not a good sign if you're getting cramp at this moment.
So Rovny has come out of the front of the peloton at the moment. The young Russian, just 21 years of age, Ivan Rovny this year. Back with our three breakaway riders in the lead at the moment. They've still got those Capo to come, Capi, these smaller hills. The Curva Bata are still to come. The Capo Curva is at 245 kilometers. The Capo Berta at just over 258. Oh dear, I think that William Frischkorn is trying to keep the dreaded cramp at bay. But he was looking very, very tired when he was trying to take on something to eat as well. I know that feeling well. I think most people know that feeling well, when you're trying to eat something and breathe at the same time and hang onto the wheel in front. Not easy. Much easier with sort of gels and things, but he was eating a good old bit of pastry or bread or something similarly old school. Not easy. Frischkorn, who hasn't done an awful lot. Did all right in the Tour of Missouri last year. 4:22 is the gap. They're still just letting him hang out there. They've got lots of focusing on Danilo Di Luca today. He's got a couple more days still to go before the so-called oil for drugs trial reopens, and he'll find out whether he's going to be sanctioned or not by the Italian system. So he's sort of living on the edge of hope there. But he's got to get out here and race. He can't think about that today. He can't play on his mind. He's got to get out there and race. And he desperately, having won the Giro d'Italia last year and failed to get a Pro Tour contract because of his alleged involvement in that particular doping scandal in Italy, he's desperate to show that he can still do something. With the Pro Continental team, LPR, it's been an interesting time for Pro Continental teams. They've been able to pick up a lot of riders they wouldn't normally have picked up. And they also have Paolo Salvadelli in that team, so two huge stars moving to LPR. Ivan Rovny is the man in the middle, time trialing his way towards some sort of nothing, I think.
I think it's certainly the case. You would need to be a marvellous time for us. I think if we see Cancellara going out there, it would be just impossible for him to do it. And you know, for the moment, it's just calculation being worked out by the team domestiques, and just keeping it rolling. And you know, at that 4 minutes for the moment, no problem at all. And it will just automatically speed up as we get to the capos, as we see the 3 leaders are on the capo, the first capo, and it will just, you know, automatically start up the speed, and the gap will come down. So I think for a rider just going out there on his own, as we see Rovney, it's just to get a bit of exposure. I think that's all he's going to get out of this one.
Yeah, it's important to them, isn't it? Robert Hunter moving up just on the right-hand side of Giovanni Visconti. Left of Visconti is the world champion, Paolo Bettini. Only a number of men: Alfredo Binda, Cerrone, Gimondi, Merckx have won whilst wearing the world champions jersey. Just a shade over 4 minutes the gap to the 3 remaining breakaway riders. The other one was Nicola De Andrea from the Misch squad. And that's an interesting inclusion in this. It just goes to show what a liquid state, or a state of flux, should we say, professional racing is in at the moment, because not only has the wild card been extended to pro-continental teams, but like LPR, but it's been extended to continental teams, of which that's the sort of 3rd division teams. And Misch Silver Cross, not a bad team, but it's definitely, you'd call it a 3rd division team, are racing today. They've had Nicola De Andrea out in the breakaway for a long time. He's now back with the peloton, but good exposure for them, and they're always going to throw somebody up the road because it's a big opportunity for them. It just goes to show, Sean, doesn't it, that things are really topsy-turvy at the moment. You wouldn't have expected that a couple of years ago, maybe.
No, certainly not. And I don't think we could have forecasted 3 years ago that, you know, in this in Milan San Remo, in one of the top classics, that we would have a team of that standard. And it's certainly, you know, changing. And as you said, it's, you know, a great opportunity for a team like that, and they're certainly going to, you know, get into the break because and put somebody up the road to get exposure, as much exposure as possible, because when we come down to the end of the race, and when it really starts to, you know, get the important point in the event, I don't think we will see many of them riders at all up there.
Andrea Moletta in the middle of your shot, but on the right-hand side of him is the more important rider to be watching out for. The Milram shirt, 231 there, Alessandro Patacchi. That's Moletta right in the centre of your shot. But Patacchi is the rider just behind him. Look out for Jeremy Hunt as well if you're watching in the UK. He's riding in the Crédit Agricole team. Hunt, who was very well, not so much lucky, but it was good for him to get a berth in a really big team, Crédit Agricole. He was at Unibat last year, and what an absolute shambles that was between the UCI and the ASO. But it looked like it might be bad for Jeremy Hunt, but he's got a berth this year at Crédit Agricole. Quiet start to the season, though. It's the old steady hand of Belashovics, the Latvian, on the front of this trio of escapees at the moment. Filippo Savini is the rider in the middle in the green and orange, and right at the back is William Frischkorn from Slipstream Chipotle. There they are. And interestingly, if you look at their jerseys, by the way, they have printed on their jerseys a sort of the image of a fake baguette wrapped up in silver foil or foil of some sort in one of their back pockets. It's actually printed on the jersey, but it looks like something sticking out. I think it's something to do with the Chipotle branding. Well, although the gap is not coming down super fast, they've definitely got their racing headset now on. We saw Gert Stiegmans up towards the front earlier. Well, he's in super form. If they planned this one for Tom Bonan today, who is riding, then Stiegmans is definitely the man to lead him out, because 2 wins in Paris-Nice. I wonder what the situation was. I wonder what the situation was back in the team hut after back in the clubhouse, shall we say, after Steegmans came back and was on such fine form. Does he resume his normal role of leading out Bonin, or does he get a little bit more of a smile on his face? And they may have, the director sportives may have to be thinking again for this one.
Yes, well, that is an interesting one because Steegman's another rider, a sprinter in the Paris-Nice. We see him; he was, impressive in the climbs and the stage to Cannes over the Bouragay, that climb, and then on to Tannerone. He was up there in that breakaway most of the day, and I think he's really in top shape as well, because normally on a stage like that we would not see him as much to the fore, and it'll be interesting to see what the tactic is with Quick-Step if they get to a finish. And I think they certainly have just to save their set on the Cipressa and the Poggio and see can they get over with the main contenders, because it's always going to be difficult for Tom Bolan and for Steegmans. But if they get over the Poggio, well, then in the sprint it will be interesting to see who's going to have to make the sprint. I just don't know what the tactic will be today.
No, I don't think anybody really knows what the tactic will be, well, apart from them, obviously. Maybe they don't. It really depends on how they're feeling when they get there, Sean, doesn't it? As soon as they get to that big climb with the Poggios and the Cipressa, especially when they're testing legs, if they've decided to push hard, some teams, you just may, that may be the final shakeout. They may have multiple game plans, or they will have multiple game plans up until that point.
Yes, well, it's certainly, it's always difficult to pre-plan tactic, and in San Remo, it's, a one way there's the risk of crashes as well. A lot of the time, leading to the Cipressa and Poggio, quite a lot of crashes, and sometimes you can arrive with a small group, and if you get over the Poggio with a group of, 15, 20 riders, and you have, Bone and you have Steegmans in there, well, then that changes. Of course, Steegmans would have to make the sprint in that case if there are not many sprinters there. But if there's a lot of other sprinters there, I wonder what the tactic will be, and will Steegmans really be thinking of himself today, because the form he's in at the moment, I think he's in the form of his life, and if he gets the finish, I think he has a good chance, or maybe a better chance than Bonin, because Bonin hasn't been showing great form in the Trino Adriatico.
Nope. That's interesting. Right, well, we saw Paris-Nice being won and lost between the Italians and the Dutch on a descent, and it was going to come. The inevitable question was going to come. 1992, Sean, you must remember it very well, the rest of us all do. How important is the descent of the Poggio, as it was on your very famous win there, where you caught Moreno, Argentin, who'd got off ahead? How important is it to be able to get down that quickly as well as go up it quickly?
Well, on this one, it's of major importance, because the Poggio to the finish, when you get to the top, it's about a little under 7 kilometers to the finish, and that's including the little bit extra on today. So it's a dangerous ascent, and it's all about freshness as well. If you're suffering on the Poggio and you hang in there, and you really go deep to stay in with the big favourites, well, then it's difficult on the descent because you're not as fresh. But if you get over the Poggio very well, you can make a very good descent, if you're a good descenter, of course. And if you're one who worries about the descent, well, then it's always going to be a major difficulty here. So yes, the Poggio, the climb is important, but the descent is as much as important.
Just take us through that day as you went up the Poggio, because Moreno, Argentin, took, wearing the colours of Ariosto, I think I remember at that time, he just took off, didn't he? And nobody seemed to go with him. What was going through the rest of your minds, or yours in particularly, when you all looked around at each other and saw Argentin going away on the Poggio?
Well, Argentin, he immediately on the beginning of the slopes of the Poggio, he went in the attack, and I think he attacked at least 3 or 4 times. And the first number of attacks, the riders had to claw their way back, and eventually, like the main part of the group got back with him, and he just attacked again. He kept on doing that, but the final attack, there was nobody able to match it. Nobody responded to it, and he just went away. And he was really in unbelievable shape that year in the Trino Adriatico. I think he won 2 stages, which were these top hill finishes. And he was just really a long ways ahead of the rest. And I was in there, and I was in good shape, but I said to myself, well, I'm not going to be able to go in the attacks with the Argentine. There's no point in trying to do that, because I'll just blow myself up. And I just followed in 10th, 12th position on the Poggio, and just hung in there, and left the race, let it go on up the Poggio. When I got to the top, Argentine, he had about 13, 15 seconds of advantage, and I decided to go on the descent, because I said, well, I'm going for a place, at least I'll be second, and maybe I might catch him in the end. But he made a very poor descent on that day.
Well, the very famous win by Sean back in 1992 wasn't a notedly particularly bad descender though, Sean. I mean, might have not been a complete kamikaze descender, but looking at you descending from the old archive shots, from the helicopter shots, I mean, you were bouncing off walls on that day. Were you surprised to see that you could catch him by the bottom?
Well, I was surprised that I was coming back, you know, really quickly on him, and on the descent of the Poggio, you can see the rider just, you know, a corner down under you, and I certainly, you know, started the descent and took a lot of risks, but as I went further down, I was coming back to him, and the possibility of catching him was great. So, you know, you take that bit extra risk then. But Argentine on that day, he descended poorly, and the reason we do not know to this day, I think he gave it a lot of effort on the Poggio and maybe was suffering, or otherwise he got very nervous when he knew he was out there in front with, you know, a big chance of winning the race. But certainly, you know, he didn't descend to his best ability, because he was quite a good descender, and I was amazed in, you know, the second half of the descent, the lower slope, that I was coming back so quickly. And of course then, you know, when you see that, you take that little bit more risk once again.
My favourite bit of that particular bit of footage is when you come up behind him on his right-hand shoulder. He looks over his right shoulder, and you could physically see his shoulders sag, because he must have thought, oh my goodness, I've now got somebody who I've got to have a real battle with on the last 100 meters or so. He must have even thought he was beaten by that time in the sprint towards the line. But it's never say die till the line. Did he say anything to you afterwards?
Well, yes, of course, he was, you know, very disappointed, and he did, you know, shake my hand. But you know, there was little chat afterwards, because it's a huge disappointment. And when you look back at, you know, the results so many years of Milan-San Remo, Merckx have went away and went over the top with, you know, 13 seconds of an advantage, and went on to the finish and won the race. So anybody had that sort of advantage usually held on out there. So for him, it was a surprise that I got back to him just with a kilometre to go. And the problem is with the descent, when you're there on the descent, you know, you cannot get any information from your team car, because it's always difficult. And I think it was a surprise to him that I came back, and certainly when you get caught, you know, with a kilometre to go after being out there making that big effort, and if you get caught by a rider who's a good sprinter as well, and you know, in a 2-up sprint I was probably the better sprinter, so for him to see me coming back into his wheel, it was, you know, a major disappointment for him, you know, taking into consideration the performance he did on the Poggio, the way he attacked, and the form he was in at that moment.
Well, I mean, for me, it's one of the great highlights of racing. I mean, I can put that video on over and over and over again. Oh, sorry, DVD as it is now, over and over and over again, as we watch Ivan Rovny still trying to do something by himself and make the gap up to the 3 remaining breakaway riders. Filippo Salvini from CSF, William Frischkorn from Slipstream, and Revis Belashovics from Sonia Deva. I mean, it's great to watch, Sean. I mean, there are thousands, hundreds of thousands of people who are watching us now who will say, yeah, I remember that, or I get it out and watch it now and again. It's still as exciting now as it was then. What did it mean to you as a victory, personally? Because it would be fair to say that it was on the tail end of your career. I mean, was it something you expected?
Well, it was certainly on the tail end of my career. I cannot deny that, and you know, it was a victory that gave me a huge amount of satisfaction, because I wasn't going into the race as, you know, one of the big favourites. I was probably, you know, one of the outsiders, and although I knew in the race leading up to it, in the Torino Adriatico, which I did that year, I felt I was in good shape and I was, you know, riding very well. So I just, you know, rode the race with the view of doing something in Milan-San Remo. Did not show my hand too much, and certainly it was one of the victories that gave me a huge amount of pleasure.
Fantastic shot of you crossing the line, throwing your arms in the air. Look of delight on your face as Bernard Cole goes on the attack. He tried his hand on the climb of La Maine, which is the new little climb they stuck in the middle to avoid the rockfall, but just pushing on in terms of checking his legs, I think, more than anything else. They've caught Ivan Rovny, and one of the liquid gas riders is there as well. This is probably a question you haven't been asked very often, Sean, when it comes to Milan-San Remo. Which is the Milan-San Remo that got away for you?
Well, there's always there's quite a few that get away, and you know, you always have, I suppose, an excuse. You know, you're on the Poggio and there's an attack and you did not react immediately, and if I had reacted I could have went. And you know, in bike racing, when you get into the final, there's always you know, there's times where maybe there's nothing left in the tank. Well, in that case, you know, it's over, there's nothing you can do. But still, if you have a little bit left in the tank and you hang in there, and the rider go alone, and then you come in for the second place and you win the sprint, well, of course, then you say to yourself, I should have reacted and I should have went with that rider. And you know, when I look at the results, that when I finished second, I think it was Moser won on that year actually, and I was in second. It was 84 won by Moser, and I was second, beating Van der Aert in the sprint. And that year, you know, I probably said to myself, well, I should have reacted and tried to go with Moser.
1984, Francesco Moser riding for GIS Gelati at the time, he said in a fake Italian accent.
You can see the rear here starting to
yeah, just starting to suffer, aren't they? Yep, Dimitri Champion is the rider going backwards. Alexander, I think it's Alexander Krushinski from Belarus here up at the front now. There's Rebellin. We've just seen Stiegmans, Gasparotto up there as well on the in the colours of Bala World, looking fairly relaxed, climbing next to Rebellin. Rebellin must be on an absolute high, Sean, at the moment, having won Paris-Nice. He's tried to win it enough times and just failed to do so. So fantastic result for him. Again, another man who's would be safe to say is approaching the autumn of his career.
Yes, well, certainly is. And you know, after a number of attempts in Paris-Nice, on the podium a number of times to win it this year, it will certainly give, you know, the confidence boost that he needs in going into the rest of the classics. And of course, he's a man of the beginning of the season. He always does a good beginning of season. He's done it over a number of times in the past years, and certainly I think he's, you know, he's proved that he's in top shape, and the morale will be rocket high.
It's Christian Niemann from Rabobank in the middle of our shot. Much suffering going on now as Bernard Cole is sat at the front for Gerolsteiner. 1 minute and 30 seconds is the gap up to the remaining three breakaway riders, who are the 23-year-old from Faenza, Filippo Savini, from the CSF Group Navigare squad in the green and orange. We'll see them all in a minute, I'm sure. William Frischkorn, 27 years of age now. There he is at the back from Slipstream. Chipotle, the squad formed by Jonathan Vaughters, former postal rider and Credit Agricole rider, of course, and including David Miller. We've seen him once on our screens. Miller, part owner of the squad as well. And the final man in that trio, who's still up ahead, 32-year-old man from Riga, 3 times a national time trial champion, which is really his forte, Bolosheviks, and he's always a dangerous outsider with the time trial, especially a shorter one or a hillier one. And it's Cole at the moment who's stringing them all out. The orange and black kit you can see towards the back there is the Miche Silver Cross squad, who are in fact a continental team. And not a pro-continental team, which is always interesting. Interesting that the organisers have decided to take people on their merit and just see how they are performing over the early part of the season. The Miche Silver Cross team, actually they're based in the company is actually registered in the UK, would you believe, and the team is registered in San Marino. It's a tax thing, I'm sure. One of the other teams for wildcard are the NGC Medical. Nice, clean, crisp jerseys and shorts, dark blue lettering on white background. You'll see them. They are a Swiss-based team. GNC Medical OTC Industria Porte, to give it its full title. And the final team that have been invited here are Gianni Savio's Serramenti PVC Dequi Giovanni Androni Ciacatoli team, which I'm not going to say again, and we're just going to call them PVC, I think. Registered in Venezuela. And a massively long history with South American riders, as probably journalist Matt Rendell will tell us all about Gianni Savio. And he also has the reputation for being a bit of a snappy dresser. There was an interview with him about how he's always manages to look so incredibly tailored when he turns up at races, considering he's getting in and out of cars all day and being a director sportif. And he says he unpacks everything every night and repacks it absolutely perfectly, so he looks his very best the next day. Immensely successful with the limited budget and that he's had at pro-continental level. Done terrific things in the Giro d'Italia and other Italian races. And now has a man still in the break in the shape of young Filippo Savini. He's won a stage already this year in the Tour of Langkawi, if you remember. And there he is. And I've got a feeling he's got a brother that races well. Ah, there he is at Pozzato. He looks a bit like a Rasta at the moment, with the hair down there. He's definitely got the dreadlock thing going on at the moment. In the middle of the screen, wearing at number 111, is David Rebalin. Right behind him was the world champion jersey of Paolo Bettini. We've seen nothing of Fabian Cancellara yet. He's just lurking and lurking and lurking. I think he's in the middle of that group there, but certainly not been nothing on our shots picking him out.
Well, that's the way to do it in this one. If you can, you know, keep your nose out of the wind, as they say in cycling terms, it's an important thing to do, and just stay in there in a controlling position in the top 30, and certainly, you know, in that position at the moment. And the less times you're seeing out in the wind and putting your nose into the wind, well, that helps in the end, because every little bit of energy can count at the end of this one.
We haven't mentioned Robbie McEwen at all, Sean. He's not had a very great start to the season, Robbie, but you wouldn't want to count him out on something like this if he can get over the Poggio at speed.
Yes, well, I think for Robbie it's going to be a difficult one today, and to get over the Poggio he's really going to have to, you know, dig deep, and not in the best of shape over the last number of weeks, certainly not in the best shape. So, you know, to hang in there he's really going to have to suffer big time, and I'm afraid in the sprint then he would that would pay and that would tell. So I think for Robbie it's going to be always difficult to stay in there. First of all, it's going to be a major one for him, and if he does that, I think his sprint will pay in the end.
Well, the CSF Group Navigari rider, the Emanuele Sella team, used to be Panaria Ceramica. That was the old title of the squad. In the orange, they're still up in the break. Gianni Savio's PVC squad, nowhere to be seen at the moment.
Breaking new ground.
Of the Milan San Remo. And things are beginning to liven up. The peloton all beginning to jostle to get towards the front. Our three breakaway riders remaining. The CSF Group Navigari rider in the middle, in the green and orange, is Filippo Savini. The guy on the front at the moment is Belašović from Latvia. 47 seconds is the gap that remains over the peloton. They're really trying hard here to get towards the Cipressa. And William Frischkorn, who I think is beginning to suffer quite badly on the back for Slipstream Chipotle. And they've been out since kilometre 50. They've got 22 to go by the time they get to the top of this climb. This is where it's all really going to kick off, Sean, I think.
Yes, it certainly is, and I think it's already kicked off quite a bit. We can see the speed is quite high at the moment, and it's a normal, you know, the run into the Cipressa. Certainly, you know, the teams preparing for their lead men, and, you know, trying to keep their leaders up front. So it's a lot of tactics going on here. We just see a moment ago there was a Rabobank rider. He was, really starting to fight a bit with the Italians. And it's amazing in this race, and from my experience, the Italians, you cannot touch them in the last 30 kilometres of this one, because they give out all the time. The very minute if you touch their elbow, they start giving out and start shouting at you. They are there and they think they can do everything, because they really push about, and they're not afraid to throw their weight about. But it's an amazing race in that respect, because the Italians, they're just really crazy in the last 30 kilometres.
So how do you combat that sort of thing? I mean, if you're a man who perhaps hasn't got a particularly big team around him, I mean, luckily Cancellara and Freire have, and so on, and big strong guys as well. But if you're stuck there by yourself, I see David Miller up towards the front there. How do you combat that sort of aggressiveness by the Italian riders?
Well, it's always difficult to stay up there, because everybody's aggressive, and the Italians are really over aggressive. And if you're not a good bike handler, and a guy can fight to stay up in the top 30, it's always difficult. And if you haven't got a number of teammates to do it and to take you up on the outside, because every time you have to move up on the left side or the right hand side of the bunch in the wind, that takes a little bit of energy, and that you pay for that maybe in the end. So it is a difficult one. As we can see here, there's groups of riders. We can see Fletcher moving up on the outside there, and that's the way it's going to be all the ways until we get to the bottom slopes of the Cipressa.
It's interesting, isn't it, that LPR are putting the hammer down at the front. They definitely want to try and do something with, certainly with Danilo Di Luca. Their team director, Marco Tebai, has sent them up the front and given them strict instructions to push the pace on a bit. And there's a lot of hurting legs at the back here towards the bottom of the Cipressa. Interesting that the hammer's gone down by them. They really want to make the most of the fact that they have Di Luca and riders like Savoldelli in the squad this year. Just riding shotgun on the rear of those guys is Marcus Lundqvist, the tall Swede with the blonde locks peeking out from under the helmet. And it's still Belashovic's doing his best at time trialing, trying to stay away. William Frischkorn has managed to stick behind them for quite a while. Belashovic has been doing an awful lot of work, and he's still going well. There is the young American, 27 years of age now. I say young, that's a relative term compared to me. But he's got quite a nice start, got a nice position actually, Frischkorn. He looks quite good on the bike. 38 seconds though is the gap, and it's all getting very, very frisky behind. Lots of riders moving their way up towards the front. A lot of the policemen coming up to do their job now, aren't they, Sean? Trying to clear the way, make sure there's some sort of safety for guys coming up towards the front. David Miller in the middle of the shot, Paolo Bettini just behind him. Very difficult time for everybody now, as you say, Sean. It can get a little dangerous as well.
Yes, certainly. It certainly can get dangerous, and as we can see there, Bettini, he's just getting pushed out a little bit, and that is it's always the case, because if there's a gap up here, the riders will just go for that gap. And we can see here at the moment it's Eisel from the high road team just looking about and seeing where his main man is, and that's the case for a lot of the domestiques, just to keep close to the front and keep on riding, keep your leader up there. And if you can ride up, well, then your leader can follow you through, and it makes an opening for him. And it's a great advantage if you have a domestique or two domestiques who can keep you up in the top 20-25 riders.
Roger Hammond I can see up there as well, in the top 4 or 5. Eisel is up there. I think the two of those are riding for Gerhard Cielek, the former under-23 world road champion. And Cielek, a very strong sprinter, very strong all-rounder, very punchy rider. And certainly Eisel, whoop, hey. It's a bit of swinging in and out, going from one of the NGC medical team riders who's come up towards the front, the Pro Continental team. Eisel and Hammond working for Cielek. Still out ahead on the left-hand side of your screen is Belashovic, Frischkorn and Savini. But right in the middle of your shot, it's the riders from High Road who've taken up the chase now. Tossato I can see up towards the front. No, well, a couple of Milram riders trying to make it up towards the front, but they're scattered around a bit. I would suspect that Pataki's on the left-hand side of our shot, right-hand side of the peloton. And there is Bernal Eisel peeling off, wondering where everything is, I think. Matteo Tessato, even there. And here they are on the Cipressa. This is the lower slopes, and Savini, I think, is struggling now to stay with the strength of a rider like Belashovic's. Quite a different shaped rider. Frischkorn still hanging in there. And not very much further down the road, this lot have just entered the same corner we've seen the others three on. Here we are. Beautiful weather we've had here today. One of the Misch guys, he's tiny, isn't he? Hanging on in there. There goes Paolo Bettini, testing himself out on the Cipressa. Not so much him, but everybody else as well. Putting the hammer down. The world champion, double world champion now, and he's being covered at the moment. They don't want him to get away. It looks like Lundqvist who's gone across to him. There goes Bettini. This is a replay. Looking back, and Lundqvist has gone across to the back of him. And the two of them are catching the remaining breakaway riders. That's it. Over on the Cipressa. Straight past goes Paolo Bettini with Thomas Lundqvist in the roll just behind. Lundqvist, a very good rider in his own right, but they'd be looking for somebody like Cierlik. They might be looking for Lundqvist, who knows. But Cierlik would be their man, I would suggest. Eisel and Hammond have already been up towards the front, but this is a concerted old dig by Bettini. But we've seen this before here by Paolo Bettini. A winner down in 2003. There's Carlos Barredo, by the way. And they're just going to take it easy. Pace themselves up towards the two who've gone up the road a little bit. And there is De Luca, not exactly up towards the front at the moment, as Lundqvist takes over the front of these two here. What's the score here, Sean? Just trying themselves out. Bettini trying himself out, hoping that maybe some other guys will come across and they could just opportunistically get away.
Yes, well, of course, you know, Bettini, he said that he's going to make it difficult for the sprinters, and it is the time to do it. As I said earlier, you know, to wait until the Poggio, it's always difficult, you know, to create enough of a gap and advantage if you go in the attack and to stay away. So it is the time to do it, and maybe the quick step riders, you know, as we talked about, you know, they want to make the race difficult for the likes of Pataki and the real sprinters, and maybe Bonin says, well, I can hang in there, but you have to get rid of some of the really good sprinters because I cannot take them in the finish. So that could be the tactic as well. Bettini could be just, you know, just opening the race up and making it difficult for the rest of the sprinters. And who knows, if he gets into a group, as you know, he's here with Lundqvist, if there's another one or two can come across, and if there's a little bit of, you know, unorganisation in the bunch, they could go on and maybe just hold on out there.
Who knows? It's Ivan Gutierrez behind here. Gutierrez, exceptionally strong rider. And we've seen that he can just get his head down and turn a big old gear. Very, very good time trialist, and he's riding up towards the back of them now. Eating away at that little lead that they've developed. And how far ahead of the rest of the peloton are they? Not a great deal.
And the Rabobanks taking control on the front of the bunch.
Oscar wants this third victory, doesn't he, Sean? And he's been in good shape in Tirreno Adriatico, winner last year, win in 2004. He's an amazing rider. He can come into form really quickly.
Yes, certainly, and you know, he can do that with just training. A lot of riders need a certain amount of competition, a certain amount of races to get into top shape, but Ferreira can do it with training alone, and it's amazing over the years the way he has, you know, come back after a long layoff with injury, you know, months, 2 months, 3 months often, and to come back and be, you know, very quickly in top shape and in competitive form. And of course, you know, that's the quick step riders as well. Freire, if you take him to the finish, if you allow the race to, you know, to go along and not to be majorly difficult, well, then it makes it that bit easier on Freire. And if you know, take him to the finish, he's, you know, a major difficulty to beat. So that could be the quick step tactic as well. Freire is another one who could be on that list, really make it difficult for those top sprinters.
Well, I think that probably is the case now, Sean, because Pacivila is coming across with the nodding donkey head. And he is definitely trying to soften up the race for somebody like maybe Balan. They've got two decent sprinters, Baldato, although he's a little older than most now, and Danilo Napolitano, what they call the gorilla. because of his size and shape, but certainly Balan will want to do something in this. And Balan, although he's got a fair turn of speed in a sprint, you would never in a million years call him a sprinter. So it looks like the softening up tactics are going on here, Sean, to break that race up. But they just have to keep cool and not let them get too far up the road and not panic.
Yes, well, of course, we see that the Rabobank team, there's two riders just setting the pace there, and at the moment, you know, the gap is not growing to be anything, you know, majorly dangerous. So they just keep on doing that, and also for Rabobank and Ferreira, the most important thing is not to really go, you know, full out, because then it makes it majorly difficult for him. So keep on making a tempo. But we see here they seem to have disappeared off the front of the bunch, and you know that's not a good thing. They have to just keep on making that tempo as they're making it, you know, a bit further down the slope here.
It's looking around going on. It was Joaquin Morriez, the Spanish road champion, who came to the front in the sort of bright red and orange. Former Swedish champion, Lundqvist. It's growing on me, that high road kit, funnily enough. But Gutierrez was in pursuit of them. And then Pachu Villa came out as well. So we have one Kees de Pang and one Lampre rider as one of the Euskaltels goes off the front, and he's chased once again. Well, their big sprinter would be Coldo Fernandez. They need to get themselves together a little more and try and drag these back. There is Gutierrez. He's a big, strong rider, but didn't manage to get across. So they're obviously working fairly well. Oh, this look is David Rebellin. Rebellin is going up towards the front. He's got Carlos Barredo in tow, policing him. Rebellin has decided it's a little too dangerous now. They're a little too far up the road. And Rebellin has put the hammer down. He's got Barredo just behind him. And that's the first significant reply we've seen, Sean, to that a little dig by Paolo Bettini and Thomas Lundqvist.
Yes, it is, and by one of the big favourites. It's a
there's a crash. Oh, somebody's touched a wheel, and the Euskaltel rider's gone down. That's Barredo's been caught up with that, and also Schleck, by the look of it. Frank Schleck was the CSC rider, and Barredo just avoiding the rear wheel of Rebellin is caught up with the Euskaltel boy. Whoop! Oh dear, that could have been a lot more nasty than it was. In fact, here we go. Barredo trying to adjust his line and spinning off to the side of the road. That's going to be very, very difficult to get back up there quickly now, but that could have been a lot worse than in fact it was. But Barredo doing the policing job almost too well, climbing really well, almost on the back wheel of Rebellin, and had to readjust.
Yes, well, a little bit of movement by Rebellin, and Barredo had to make it also, and the Euskaltel rider there just, you know, a little bit too close at the time, and he seemed to get hooked in the rear wheel of Barredo, but Barredo got out of it quite quickly and got moving again, but the Euskaltel rider, you know, lost a bit more time.
There is Carlos Barredo coming back up to the rear of this peloton as we are now. The man right at the back at the moment is Alberto Ungarato. He's a bit big and flat, time trialing for this sort of thing. Two riders coming up now. This is Rebellin coming up, and he's got with him. We can't see who he's got with him now, but they're going to have to react on this. This has blown it apart because Bettini and Lundqvist had gone up the road, and Rebellin has launched the counter-attack to get over, and has managed to do so with...
Is it Francis?
I'm not sure. No, I think it's one of the Swiss guys, isn't it?
Yes.
I think it's one of the guys from the NGC medical team. No, is it? Very difficult to tell. We'll get the full lowdown in a minute about who's over there. I say it's Nicholas Axelsson. It could be one. It could be. It could well be, because he's riding for the, as we say, PVC squad now. The Serramenti PVC Decqua Giovanni Androni Ciaccatoli team of Gianni Savio, and he's taken advantage of a little lack of getting things together and gone across. Paolo Salvoldelli. Well, there's a lot of riders up here, and in this counter-attack you wouldn't expect. Salvoldelli, an excellent rider, as we know. Fantastic time trialist, great descender. but the little dig by Bettini that opened the race up, unfortunately, it's and as Rebellin responded, there was a little tangle between Barredo and one of the Euskaltel riders who went down, and it's just blown the thing to pieces at the moment. Well, this is interesting, Sean. I didn't quite expect this to go on here. I expected a few guys to give a dig, but it's really turned upside down due to that little coming together of a Carlos Barredo and one of the Euskaltel boys. I still don't know who it was, but down they went, and it's sort of thrown things all out of kilter.
Yes, it certainly did, and you know, it upset the rhythm in the bunch, and it's surprising that there's not a team or a number of teams who are prepared to control it here on this one. It seemed to be a lot of riders hanging on the front, and you know, just undecided who is going to take up the chase, and you know, just one rider attacking, and it's the case for, you know, quite a few. We see, I think, as Lastras is there after Savadelli there, so riders just going alone in the attack, and that tells us the pace is not being set by a team, because if there was a team who was committed and really making a good pace, it wouldn't be possible for riders to go alone.
Well, they've just come through the very narrow streets of San Stefano onto the woods to Riva Ligura, and look at this. The beautiful descending style we've seen so many times of Paolo Savoldelli. He's really pushing hard and getting across as well. I think it is Axelsen, in fact, in second spot there. Nicholas Axelsen. Nicholas Axelsen, who had a very, very good Tirreno Adriatico. So our four up the front at the moment are Paolo Bettini, Thomas Lukvist, Nicholas Axelsen, and not quite sure who's the fourth one who's come across, but Savoldelli is about to join them at a rapid rate of knots. Or is it Savoldelli? He doesn't have his hair that long for a long time. Yet it is Bettini, Lukvist. Well, they've got him up here as Savoldelli. I'd be surprised if it wasn't the way he's going downhill. And Bettini, quick look over his left-hand shoulder. Last in line here now. And Rebellin, of course, so he's the other rider. And this really has set this Milan-San Remo alight now. 20 kilometers to go to the finish, and they're chasing really hard. Looks like Guti is going for it again. Is that Philippe Gilbert? From Francaise du Jour, who's come out of the front of the peloton as well, trying to bridge the gap. It's some of the guys who've missed out at the moment. Frere, Gasparotto has missed out at the moment. Di Luca we've not seen anything of. There's Rebellin at the back. He's riding on a high at the moment because of his win in the Paris-Nice. Just look at the way Savoldelli just carved through the other riders there. He just went underneath Thomas Lukvist to take the front, and they'll all be trying to hold his wheel. That's going to be hard for some of them. Whoa, it's not easy at that speed. Savoldelli out of the saddle, pushing hard. He's got Bettini behind him by the look of it. Whoa, somebody to the barrier. Oh, that's a big one. Is that Gasparotto who's gone down? It's one of the Barlow World riders. And I would not be surprised. Oh, no, it's a Cofidis rider, I'm afraid to say. I wonder if that's Chavanel, Sylvain Chavanel. He's been in such fine attacking form. Look how wide he runs. Oh, my word, tries to correct. Runs along the Armco barrier. Wallop. Now, who's the Rabobank rider who's behind him? It's all topsy-turvy here. It's all go. It is a Cofidis rider. Everything has been turned on its head by a little touch of wheels between Carlos Barredo and one of the Basque riders, and the attacks coming fast and furious. We've seen some really attacking racing this year. No sitting there and waiting. Savoldelli, yes, it is Savoldelli on the front. Babyface Savoldelli. He's grown his hair a bit longer. Paolo Bettini. Thomas Lukvist just behind, the Swede from High Road. And 20k to go. Who is it sitting on the side of the road? Tristan Valentin, the Frenchman, is what they have it down as. And he just ran so wide and went along that Armco barrier. Let's hope he hasn't got too many deep lacerations to that left-hand side, because believe me, that stuff hurts.
And it's you know, it's a normal thing on the descent of the suppressor. We've seen many times a number of crashes. It's one of the descents which it's a dangerous one, and maybe more dangerous than the Poggio. And they're certainly going down, you know, at full bore here, and we can see the bunch the way it's, you know, really lined out. And you know, it's one little bit of hesitation, one lapse in concentration, and then you can run into problems. And if a rider on the front, you know, panic a little bit and brake suddenly, I think that was the case for the Cofidis rider. The rider in front maybe braked a bit, you know, heavily, and he just, you know, went close to the back wheel and then had problems controlling and just touched the barrier.
I've just seen George Hincapie go through there. There's Toruzoft on the back, Eric Zabel, Eric Pataki is there, Ferrero is there, Baden Cook right at the back here. Cook, Ferrero, Uzoft. Just ahead of Uzoft is Pataki, then Zabel is ahead of that. Hincapie is ahead of them for high road at the moment. Bettini is up the road in the little breakaway of 5 riders, which includes Nicholas Axelsson of the Savio squad, PVC we'll call them for the moment. Paolo Bettini we've just seen. Paolo Salvoldelli, who went across from the group using his descending skills, and he's driving it along now for LPR. Thomas Lukvist for high road, and David Rebellin, who launched that counter-attack on Bettini and Lukvist. There he is, the winner of Paris-Nice. There is Eric Zabel, 4-time winner. Looking behind him, Pataki is still there, taking a gel on board. There is Hincapie. Ferreira. Pataki looking fairly unfazed. Actually, Eric Zabel looks more worried than Alessandro Pataki does at the moment. And the Liquigas boys working really hard. I'm not quite sure what the position of that Pataki group is, Sean, on the road. We haven't had anything on race radio to say where they are. Are they sandwiched between these guys, or are they
sandwiched between? I think we could see that you know, they're chasing this group of 5 leaders, and what a group of chasers. You know, a lot of the big favourites there, and it's just that positioning for the descent of the suppressor. I think, you know, the sprinters they know the danger points, and certainly, you know, move to the front for the descent, and that is the tactic, and that's the reason I think the crash also maybe split the group here, and that's why we've found about a dozen riders here chasing down the leading group of 5.
Well, they're all coming back together. The man who was missing out from that, of course, was the 1996 winner Filippo Pozzato, which is why they've got the Liquigas boys on the front shutting down that illustrious group of chasers. And back in the main group is Marcus Lundqvist, we've seen, not to be confused with Thomas Lundqvist. Lundqvist, another Swede, he's pushing along for CSC. They want to get Cancellara towards the top. Rebellin with Bettini on his wheel, and just behind them Thomas Lundqvist. Paolo Salvoldelli, well, he's made a good opportunistic lunge. Good move by Nicholas Axelsson as well. He's in fine form. He knows he's got to do something for the squad there, the former Selle Italia squad, which they're not called Selle Italia anymore, and I'm going to call them PVC. I've said it before, but worth saying because the name is so long, it's almost impossible to say. I suppose if I practiced, I could say Decqua Giovanni team. Well, this group all back together now again. All the favourites within this. Stuart O'Grady just in the shot with Lundqvist on the left-hand side for CSC. There is O'Grady, and Schleck just behind him, and Cancellara just behind him. So CSC still working hard towards the front. Scott Sunderland's got his boys back up to the front. They rode on the coattails of Liquigas. That's good work. And they're motoring. And looks like Guti is in there as well for Case Depang, and they're bringing some riders up. That's Gasparotto coming on the far left-hand side of the shot. We've not seen anything of Robert Hunter. I bet he's suffering, Sean, at the moment.
Yes, well, there's quite a few of the big favourites we haven't seen, but in the main bunch there at the moment, you know, to sit in there in 15th, 20th position and just leave things happen, and hopefully we'll see the Liquigas and the CSC riders closing it down here before we get to the beginning of the Poggio. And you know, if you're in that position and you're feeling well, it's certainly, you know, no problem for the moment. But as you move to the Poggio, you certainly have to move up and get into the top 15, getting on the beginning slopes of the Poggio.
Just a 7k to go when they finish, when they crest the top of the Poggio. 33 seconds is the gap, and they're going to be taken back because these guys are flying now. Have you got an outside tip for the top, Sean, when they reach the finish today, which we'll talk about in just a second, before they reach the Poggio?
Well, I think there's a lot of action to come, and in this group we have riders who are certainly in their minds to attack, and that is the tactic on the Poggio. Philip Gilbert, of course, he's in fine form, and if he's in good shape today, he's going to certainly have a go on the Poggio. And I think it will be really a big battle on the Poggio, as always is. But if you have riders out in front, well, then that's a bit of a bit of a leaping frog for you can see the riders just up front, 10 seconds, 15 seconds out in front, and if you can go on a good attack, at least you get across to them, you get a little bit of a rest period, and then go on from there.
Well, let's just talk about that finish for a second, Sean, because they normally finish on the Via Roma. They're reconstructing the road there, and they've swung the route in towards, or out, shall we say, towards the coast a little more, and they go along the Via Brixio, and then the Vittorio Veneto, which takes it slightly southwards. There's a left-hand kink and then a right-hand sweeping bend about 250 meters from the end as they go into the Italio Calvino, and that's where they finish. It's a little bit longer, isn't it, than the normal finish, and a lot more technical.
Yes, it's certainly a bit more technical. There's 2 extra corners, and of course, when we look at the final run in the last kilometre, of course, it goes straight for about 400 or 500 meters, but then around the 500 meters to go, there's a little chicane, and then there's a right-hand turn just after that. So those 2 corners are going to be vital. The final is about 400 meters, and that's quite a short finish. And if you arrive with a big group, position is going to be more important again. And if you look back at the other years, the Via Roma, a long straight, certainly a kilometre long, you can see the finish out there. So today's one is a bit more technical, and it's a one where you could get cut out in the corner very easy, so you have to be really careful on this run-in.
I'm just trying to he always got great facial expressions, Paolo Bettini. He always looks like he's really suffering whatever he's doing. And Paolo Salvadelli always looks as though he's in good shape until he gets flying fast, and then he starts to drag in it. He's a very animated rider, is the little cricket, Il Grillo. Paolo Bettini is always entertaining to watch, not just about racing, with facial expressions and so on. He's not a sort of metronomic rider. At the moment, it's Frank Schleck and Carsten Kruner doing the pulling on the front of the peloton. David Rebellin is another man who remains fairly stony-faced until he's under real pressure. It's CSC who are doing all the work on the front at the moment. Scott Sutherland's got them up there pulling along. They've got Liquigas for company, although they are doing most of the work at the moment. Of course, the team benefiting from this is Rabobank. There aren't that many Rabos up to the front, believe me, and I think Lampre possibly are benefiting from this as well. 10 seconds only now is the gap, so they've done a good job in shutting this down. But Oscar Ferreira's team, Napolitano's team, and Balan, of course, from Lampre, they are having a bit of a, not an armchair ride, but they're getting a bit of work done by CSC. CSC want to get Cancellara to line. They've first, of course, they've also got Stuart O'Grady as an outside card. Bretchel's in good shape. Schleck's been doing most of the work, and they're still plugging on at the front, but they are going to be taken back very shortly. And now Liquigas takes up the charge on the front. Filippo Pozzato, winner here in 2006. He's their man for the final today, and if he can get to the Poggio in good shape, he's a man who could climb it pretty quickly as well.
Yes, well, of course, he's able to get up those sort of climbs, and as you said, he's won here before, so the confidence he will have that, and if he's in good shape, he's a rider who certainly is a one who's technically or tactically, he's a very good one as well. He can calculate it very well, and I think he will maybe just wait for the final, and he's a one who always have a go on that final kilometre, and in a small group he's a one who can win the sprint against a lot of the riders. If they can get rid of the real big sprinters, well, then he's always in a great chance here.
Well, here's your man, Philippe Gilbert at the very foot of the Poggio. We've got 7K once we get down there. We're going to get to the top of the Poggio. This would be a very big turning point in Philippe Gilbert's career. He's been knocking on the door. He's won GP Samin and more. Even better, he's won the Het Volk this year. But Gilbert, the Belgian, this big Achilles heel, or his Achilles heel in the past, Sean, has been distance, and this is the longest of the races. It's good to see him up there, even at this late stage. You wouldn't have expected it a few years ago.
No, although in the Poggio I think we've seen him do a little bit before, but it all depends how much he has got left in the tank, and the position he's in at the moment, not the best position, because if you go on the attack here, you're a bit too close to the front, and if your tactic is to have a go on the Poggio, you have to go back into 6th or 8th position, attack from that one and take everybody by surprise. But maybe he's going to hold on here and wait for the sprint and have a go in that in the final kilometre, or maybe he's going to push it all down to the sprint.
My word, just look at the number of riders who are here. It's Alessandro Bertolini, who was said earlier, look out for Bertolini on the Poggio. He rode superbly for Italy during the World Championships. He's won a lot of races last year. Cancellara looks as though he's coming across to him as well. And the number of guys really digging in here. They all looked at each other for a minute, and Bertolini has gone away. Milan was up the front. Pozzato was up the front. And they're all now going to have to work out, well, will we be able to control somebody like Bertolini? Philippe Gilbert was the man who was at the front. He just slackened the pace a weeny bit, and so did Milan in response. And Alessandro Bertolini has moved away up the front, and he's a very strong rider, Sean. He did this lap after lap at the World Championships.
Yes, well, he certainly, did an enormous amount of work in the World Championships. He was riding on the front for, quite a number of laps, and I was certainly, amazed at, the power he had on that day. And if he can, keep on going as he is here, he seems to be, climbing very strong. And, a little bit of hesitation when we see there with Gilbert on the front, and he took advantage of it, certainly.
He won a stage in Coppi and Bartoli last year. Won the Tour of the Apennines and won the Tour of Venezia and the Coppa Agostini. He's a man again in the twilight of his career, shall we say, riding for the Serramenti PVC Edequa Giovanni Androni Giacottoli team. 37 years of age now is Bertolini, well into his last few years, but he's riding like a man possessed, and he has been for the last couple of years in this team. Well, last year I think he was with Acqua Sapone, and this year moved over to Edequa Giovanni. And he hasn't got a huge lead yet, but he's still riding. Can anybody get up to him? Sean, what would you be doing in this position if you were in the at the head of the peloton? Just waiting?
Well, yes, if you're one of the big favourites, of course, you have to wait. But depending on what's happening on the front, as we see the Rabobank rider, and if you have a teammate or a number of teammates who can continue making a good tempo on the front, well, then you just wait there, because if you make the effort yourself as one of the big favourites, well, then you pay for that, and that's something you cannot afford to do. So you need teammates around you, and certainly for Ferreira, he needs more, maybe, because one rider on his own, it might be difficult for him to keep this going all the way to the top of the Poggio.
Bertolini there, and now we're coming over the top, and now the hammer's really going to go down. Gilbert's been sitting there for a while. Balan, I think it is, who's taken up, or is it Paciviglia right at the front? It's let's get back to the action, because we really need to see who is who. And we've got following down, looks like Kurt Arvenson to me. Pelazzotti there, yeah. Not Pelazzotti, Pizzato, is it? Or is it Pelazzotti? No, it looks like Pelazzotti. Yes, it is Franco. Difficult to tell with the picture breakup, but Pelazzotti is the man who has gone across. He's a very, very fine rider as well. Raffaele Iliano. Number 212 there, wearing the jersey of road champion of New Zealand, Julian Dean. Well, he's an interesting season. We're riding for a Slipstream now, of course. Well, there's a lot of people trying to get away right now on the descent of the Poggio. Well, almost on the descent of the Poggio.
There's a little section there where it eases off a little bit, and it's quite a nice recovery time, and certainly, you know, it's the gap as we see here. It's they're just about to be pulled back. Is that it? Yes.
Yeah, the Pelazzotti group is about to be pulled back, and the Barlow Worlds have taken it up on the front. They've got 3 men who could do something now. Baden Cook, Enrico Gasparotto and Robert Hunter. It's Gasparotto in the front. Gasparotto, whose birthday it is today, 26 years of age, and had a great Tirreno Adriatico, and he's heading things down the slope. He's got David Rebellin right behind him, Alessandro Balan in that typical position of his, and then right behind him is Pippo Pozzato. There is Cancellara on the back of this group, following the man wearing #1 as winner last year, Oscar Freire. This is a very exalted group of riders. Here goes Gilbert. The Belgian Walloon rider, Philippe Gilbert, has given it a go, and Fabian Cancellara doesn't want him to get away, because there goes Gilbert. Round the left-hander, Cancellara, Gasparotto, Rebellin, Balan, Pozzato, Torujoft is in there, I can see. A couple of riders from Decua Giovanni are in there. Bertolini will be one of them. Here comes the next group. There's a nasty little dip in the middle of that left-hand corner. We haven't seen whether Robert Hunter has got his way over to the front group. No idea at all. It's a fine, dry day here. Beautiful, beautiful weather for bike racing, and the Belgian has launched his bid to try and get away and stay away if he can, but he's got Fabian Cancellara, who once he gets to the bottom will be desperate to drag him back in. That's a nice shot of the sea. Let's see the bikes. There we go. Philippe Gilbert. Got to give it everything now, running as wide as he can. Gilbert looking over his shoulder. Well, they're back on him. Not a big enough attack, Sean. And Cancellara is going straight past him. He's got Gasparotto chasing desperately hard to stay on his wheel. That's a hard wheel to follow.
Yes, it's certainly a difficult one. Cancellara, of course, you know, a big heavy rider, and he's certainly going to go downhill very quickly. And we see Gilbert, he just, you know, decided not to continue there because the advantage was nothing. So it's better just to wait a moment and see in the final kilometres.
5 kilometres to the finish. Sean, who knows these corners so well, won here twice. Most spectacularly in 1992, we were talking about earlier in the broadcast, where he brought back Moreno Argentin, or caught Moreno Argentin by descending down here like a complete loon, if you look at the DVDs. But both of us on the edge of our seats here, because this is really thrilling stuff. It's Fabian Cancellara now at the head of things. He seems to have slowed it down a weeny bit. Gasparotto is on his wheel, the birthday boy from Barlow World. Takes over at the front, because Cancellara doesn't really want to be there, I don't think. Rebellin is right behind him. There comes Balan. There's a couple of riders coming across. I think Coldo Fernandez is managing to get across to the group. But there's about, what, 10 riders in this front group? Maybe a few more, 10, 12 riders. And now he's at the front. It's David Rebellin. The winner of Paris-Nice has decided, well, it's slowed down too much for my liking. Let's keep it going. But Cancellara was the man who wanted to sort of just slip in down the order a weeny bit. Maybe he's looking for Stewie. Who knows? But I think he just wanted to, I think he wants to surprise them in the last corner, Sean. I think that's what he wants, or last 2 corners. That's what he really wants, is to come past them like at full time trial tilt and not have to drag them down there in the first place. They just ride him like a big train till he gets to the end.
Certainly, of course, to ride in the front, it's not the place to be, because although you're on the descent, you still have to give you know, quite an effort, and it's the wrong position to be in if you can get off that and you know, wait for the final kilometre or the final 500 metres, as you say. And that is Cancellara's specialty. If he can, you know, come from behind and take him a little bit by surprise, well then he's, you know, majorly strong and difficult to pull back if he gets 20-30 metres of an advantage.
And one of the Decua Giovanni riders off in pursuit. Has he got Pippo Pozzato with him? No, or is it Pelazzotti again? Difficult to tell. Looks like Pelazzotti here, looking back over his shoulder to see where Pozzato is and not putting the hammer down. And it looks like Bertolini's style again towards the front. It is Bertolini, Pelazzotti and Rebellin in that order. No, it's Pozzato, is it? No, it's Pelazzotti. That is definitely Pelazzotti. And that's why they whipped that graphic off really quickly. And they're all now looking behind Nocentini for the first time. We've seen Ronaldo Nocentini looking back over his shoulder. Who's going to go for it? Is that Milan who's going across? Who's Napolitano? So, Pelazzotti, Rebellin and Bertolini. Are they about to be joined by Fabian Cancellara? They are. Still looking over his shoulder to see where Pippo Pozzato is. That's Milan at the back for Barlow World, Enrico Gasperotto. And now having a quick dig off the front is the Euskaltel rider. Is that Landalusa who's got across to this group? That's amazing. Well, I mean, he's got actually Landalusa's got a pretty good turn of speed as well. Here goes Fabian Cancellara, the double world time trial champion. Whoa, look at that! That's an enormous gap he's pulled out straight away. Well, this is the danger. You get this man in this sort of situation, they can't all keep looking at each other because he's going to go straight up the road. Oh, he's gone. He's taken his chance now because in a flat-out sprint, Sean, there's some other faster guys here and they're going to have real trouble dragging him back now.
Yes, well, certainly if unless there's a team who come to the front with, you know, 2 riders plus, it's going to be major difficult to take him back. And we see, you know, just a moment, a little bit of hesitation on Cancellara. He just takes advantage and goes for it. And as I said, you know, when he gets that 10-20 meters advantage, like, he's such a powerhouse.
Well, riders have really missed out. Alessandro Patacchi, in fact, I think he's on the front of the chasing group trying to drag himself back. But Fabian Cancellara using all his skills as a time trial rider. Under the 1 kilometer to go banner. They're finishing in a different spot today. They're swinging south towards the sea and then back up again. Oh, Cancellara is just cantering away. Alessandro Milan can do absolutely nothing to drag him back at the moment. Come on, come on. He's saying, get past there. They're all hanging about to see who's going to do something. No, they're all going to settle for second.
Yes, Gasperotto won't take it up, and you know, this is where Cancellara is definitely going to go on and take it.
No, well, they've just Bertolini has now gone to the front. Who's going to take the sprint for second? It's all about now Fabian Cancellara. He's done it again. Well, Scott Sundell will be bouncing off the roof of the car at the moment, and we thought he would have a go with the 2 or 3 quarters to go, and in such fabulous shape, and nobody prepared to work really hard together to drag him back. As soon as Alessandro Milan pulled off, Gasperotto not wanting to take it up. We're inside the last 100. He's got time. He's won the Sprinters Classic from a breakaway group. He's gone in the last 3 corners. Fabian Cancellara, who gets the second. It looks like Pippo, well, looks like Pelazzotti, in fact, if that was still Pelazzotti in the group. One of the Liquigas riders, and lots of tired riders now coming across. Well, they let him go, and they didn't go after him. My word, is there no end to this man's talents? He really is an absolute powerhouse. And he plays up to his strengths, doesn't he, Sean? Because he knows he can't take them in maybe a flat-out sprint, although he can come fairly close just by pure power. But he plays to his strengths. He knows he's a great time trialist, and now he's won Paris-Roubaix. He's won Milan-San Remo. What a talented rider.
Yes, well, what a talent and what a powerhouse, because we see him on the descent of the Poggio. He just got off the front as we spoke about it, and it was the thing to do. And, you know, just get in there in the 5th, 6th position and wait for the moment to attack. And he certainly, you know, went to the perfect moment. There was a few attacks beforehand, and he just went when everybody was suffering. And that is the time to attack, but you have to be able to attack at that time, and he's the man in shape at the moment.
Fabian Cancellara then takes the 99th edition of Milan-San Remo under glorious sunshine. The Swiss rider, double world time trial champion, just launched himself off the top to victory. Well, this man, no stranger to Italy, of course, rode for Faso Bortolo, got his first big victory in a stage in the Tour de France with Faso Bortolo. But just look at the gap he opened up, and nobody responded quick enough to get onto his wheel. And then when they did start chasing him down, it was Alessandro Milan of Lampre who did most of the work. And Milan, when he pulled off and waited for Gasparato to come through and do something, he didn't. Wonderful victory, and we've seen that style before. Hands in the air, fingers pointing to the sky, but a wonderful victory. Thoroughly deserves. Hats off, chapeau to Fabian Cancellara. So after 298 kilometers of the 99th running on Milan-San Remo, it's the Swiss powerhouse Fabian Cancellara who takes victory. Time trialing capabilities to power away to victory. There he is on the attack, and nobody responded when he did that. As soon as he did this, somebody should have tried to jump on that wheel. And look at the gap he got almost immediately. Well, what an opener to the classic season. He's won a cobbled classic, he's won a hilly long classic. Is there no end to this man's single-day racing capabilities? Fabian Cancellara will be on an absolute high as we go towards the Northern European Classics, Tour of Flanders and Paris-Roubaix. Can he take one of those two? Can he take another Roubaix win? Can he take a Flanders win? From Sean and I, we'll be back shortly. Thanks for joining us. Bye for now.